All right, let's look at the domestic commodities space. And I have here with me Nosike Umajide, one of the research analysts with Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you very much for joining us, Nosike.
Always my pleasure.
Well, we have seen scarcity fears that seem to be spiking the prices of commodities. Which commodities are mostly affected by all of this?
Major one is tomatoes, up 50% in the last week from about 6,000 naira a basket, 50 kg basket to
Why?
9,000 naira. It's panic buying, if you like. I mean, there's anticipation of reduced supply in the coming weeks, and obviously increased demand as people panic buy and stockpile as everyone is staying home and the uncertainty surrounding all of this and the coronavirus. There's also some uncertainty as to, there's some talk about the Iyaloja of the Lagos market that she's supposed to make some comments or address the market people, so to speak. And
Perhaps it's possible they will close the market.
Might close market. So people are panic buying and stockpiling, if you will. So that has driven prices up, not just tomatoes, but yam as well. There's also some seasonality playing in. We have the planting season, and the harvest season is sometime July, August. So as it is, typically this time of the year, the prices rise, but obviously the increased demand is pushing prices up as well.
Now, how much of impact will the closure of the airports and the borders, now have on the domestic commodities markets, not just some of those foodstuff?
Okay, obviously it's to have prices will increase faster or high. The impact will be not just border closures that we're seeing from late last year to mid last year to up to this point. We're seeing like food inflation, for instance, is up to 14.9% from 13.17 at the time. We expect that to increase. The borders have been closed. I mean, so the impact of that is beginning to fade. But now that you've added the airports as well, that's a renewed constraint. So we expect prices to go up in the coming months, not just for food commodities, for even medical supplies, for instance. I mean, the Mazi that talked some moments ago talked about, Nigerians are coming to see that you can't continue to rely on imports for something as basic as medical supplies. So it's not just food, but also medical supplies.
Now, talking about the medical supplies, what would the funding of the pharmaceuticals mean, for the commodities market?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. It's one of the bright, something good that can come out of this whole coronavirus thing. And so if CBN provides about 3.5 trillion, 3.5 billion in funding, and to source your raw materials locally to produce, as opposed to bringing them in, source them locally, produce and manufacture your drugs here, that would it's a huge boost to the pharmaceutical industry and the manufacturing industry as a whole. Hopefully we can have substitutes that we can rely on as opposed to bringing in from China and the rest of the world.
Now the government is promoting social distancing.
Yes.
Is that going to have any kind of impact?
Well, it's something that obviously in the marketplace, it's something that it's one of the things that Iyaloja is supposed to talk about. I mean, it's difficult to see how that is implemented in a typical Nigerian marketplace where we're supposed to, people use cash and all of that. If you say, let's do transfers or POS, okay, POS, it's still touching things. Transfers, okay, but it's not very practicable as it is at the moment. So, I mean, it might just, the authorities might take a look, see if it's possible or practicable, and might eventually lead to a closure of markets. But it remains, all of that is still uncertain. I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth at the moment, but it's something that is a possibility in the coming weeks.
All right. Now, looking at your slide there, you are expecting that the MPC would have to bring down rate. Why so?
It's in line with what most economies, even in this part of the world, in Africa and advanced economies, are doing to stimulate growth. But basically, growth has been elevated to a primary concern. Typically, the CBN has price stability and exchange rate stability and on the front burner. But we think that with what is going on globally, you see the U.S., all kinds of stimulus. So they announced a $2 trillion stimulus to boost its economy. and bringing rates down to zero. The Central Bank of South Korea cut rates, Bank of England cut rates, Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, they're all cutting rates to stimulate growth. We think that the CBN would support the fiscal authorities by cutting the MPR.
Now, but in our Nigerian context, we have seen the macroeconomic development, even though the GDP recorded a higher number. Yes. We've seen inflation rate going high, trade deficit, and all of that. So what do you think would inform the central bank's decision to probably cut rates?
Okay, because the choice on one hand is to, we're completely ruling out a rate hike, given all of these things that you mentioned. So inflation, that is typically its worry. It's the food inflation is something that might rise in coming weeks. The exchange rate that has just been adjusted, so to speak, is something that we even feel inflation as imports will become more expensive. So it has that inflation worry on one hand. Then obviously the need to spur growth. So I think it's a way the two, and given this time, this peculiar time, it might put, elevate growth to a higher priority than inflation, and that will force it to lower rates.
All right, in the midst of all this COVID-19 outbreak, what is the outlook for the commodities market?
For domestic commodities, we expect them to continue to rise, even the ones that have been stable in the last week. So we expect them to continue to rise as Nigerians panic buy and stockpile in anticipation of a lockdown. Globally, commodities like wheat, globally, people are stockpiling wheat flour. The prices have risen. Commodities like corn. Corn is a major ingredient in biofuels. So as the price of crude oil falls, people who typically buy corn to use as a raw material of biofuels have switched back to crude oils. I've seen the price of corn fall. For cocoa, the weather conditions in Ivory Coast have not been very favorable, so prices have risen. We've seen for sugar, India, that's a major producer of sugar, because globally, commodities markets have been in the red of recent, and the producers have begun to adjust their stance, so they produce less, and that, slower production, seeing prices increase.
All right, thank you very much, Nosike, for your time. Nosike Nwajide is one of the research analysts with Financial Derivatives Company.